building, it's like you're laying bricks. You're laying bricks in the foundation of the pagoda that will lead you to enlightenment, right? So in this life, if you can't be a monk, spending all of your time in the mountains meditating, well, you can come to a program like this. You can spend 5 minutes a day at home, sitting in meditation, or chanting Namo Idapa, Namo Idapa. Doing something is better than nothing. It's like if you're going to eat some food, well, if you say, I'm not going to eat anything because I can't have a perfect, sumptuous, wonderful 5-star meal. No one would say that, right? If all you have is, some chicken McNuggets from McDonald's or a little bit of tofu and rice, and you're hungry, you're going to eat. So same thing with Dharma practice. If you can't be perfect, that's okay. Do what you can. And that might be motivation for you to do more later. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Isn't it selfish to help yourself and then others?
Okay, well there are 3 kinds of motivation. There's the motivation of a king, a ship's captain, and then a shepherd. So a king, first in a king's motivation, first they take care of their own needs. A king will have the best food, the best homes, servants, and the best clothing and everything, and then they take care of their subjects' needs. So all the wealth goes into the center, up to the top, and then it kind of moves back out from there. So for a king's motivation then, a king says, I'm going to go into enlightenment first, and then I will help other beings. It's good to have that motivation, but it's not the best motivation. The second motivation is a ship's captain. So a ship's captain says, let's all go together. The boat is traveling at the same speed. Everyone on the boat is traveling at the same speed. So a ship's captain says, let's all go into enlightenment together. That kind of motivation says, let's go together. That's better than the motivation of a king, but it's still not the best motivation. The best motivation is to be like a shepherd. So a shepherd has their flock of animals, and they're behind the animals, pushing them forward, right? Helping them go forward. So with the shepherd's motivation, you're saying, I want everyone else to go into enlightenment before me. That's the best motivation. But what actually happens, because unenlightened beings cannot lead other beings into enlightenment. What actually happens, it's more like a king. The mechanics of it, functionally. First, you become enlightened, and then as an enlightened being, you pull other beings into enlightenment through teaching the Dharma. Again, not through... Again, not through magic. It's through teaching the Dharma. That's how Buddhas and Bodhisattvas lead beings into enlightenment. So functionally, we enter enlightenment first, and that's when we're actually able to help other beings. Of course, we can help other beings along the way. The more that we learn, we can pass that knowledge on to other people. I'm not enlightened, but I'm here teaching a little bit tonight. So we can have some positive impact as we go. So yes, those are also very good questions. You guys ask really good questions. Are there more questions?
Can I have one question?
Yes, please.
Related to the right action or right livelihood. That give by that man. This is an example of myself. I'm a respiratory care practitioner. So I help in a lot of people with breathing, asthma, kids, a lot of people. But on the other hand, when people die and the family agree to take the life support machine, turn it off, and people die. I am the one that turned it off the machine. I'm the one that killing people according to that definition. So, by the definition of the right action, do I make a bad comment?
No. There may be Buddhist teachers who will disagree with me, but I say definitely no. Because those people have already lived their natural lives. They're being kept alive artificially, right? I actually do remember hearing about I think his name was Ajahn Chah. He was a very famous Thai Buddhist master. And he made it very clear, from what I understand, to his disciples that when it was time for him to die, he just wanted them to let him go. But his disciples were too attached to their teacher. And so he had a stroke or something, and he couldn't talk, and he was stuck in a wheelchair. But his disciples wouldn't let him die. They were using machines and medicine and things to keep him alive. And there was a Westerner who wrote about meditating in his community and then seeing him in a wheelchair. And he said, I looked into his eyes, and he looked like a man who was going insane. So this Buddhist master, he told his disciples, when it's my time to die, let me go. And they didn't. And he was miserable. He was trapped in this body with this broken brain. You know, and it was his time to go, and they wouldn't let him go. So I think artificially keeping people alive, especially if the family can agree that the person probably wouldn't want that, when there's no meaningful possibility of recovery, I don't think it's compassionate to keep them on machines. Let them leave this life. Let them leave this life, pray for them, help them through this transition into the next life. I think that can be the most compassionate thing. So I don't think I think you're helping people. Personally, if I'm ever sick and you're at the hospital, turn off the machine. Namaste. Another question?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know a Buddhist doesn't believe in a God, but since we don't believe in a God, how do we know what's right and what's wrong? Because sometimes, I come with a decision where I have to decide for myself if this is right and this is wrong. I don't know if there is a standard or, a teaching that kind of helps you with your morality and stuff like that.
Yes, the Buddha spent a lot of time talking about ethics and morality. If you just look at the Eightfold Path, it begins with right view and right thought. But then there's right speech, avoiding lying, harsh speech, gossip, and so on. So right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, which is really a kind of right action, but because we spend so much time with our work, it's separated out. Right effort, which is really about putting our effort into the Dharma. But particularly right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Right there, in the part of the Buddha's very first teaching, he's talking about ethics. And it's important to understand what a Buddha is. A Buddha is a being who sees perfectly clearly the truth. And so a Buddha can see exactly what will lead to suffering and what will lead away from suffering. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about ethics or morality in Buddhism. It's understanding what leads to suffering and what leads away from suffering. So the way to understand which direction to go is to study the Buddha's teaching. But inevitably we'll come to some weird situation where it's not clear. Should I go left or should I go right? And sometimes it's there'll be suffering if I go this way, and there'll be suffering if I go this way. So what's the best thing to do? Then we fall back on compassion. Right? What will cause, maybe the question is, what will cause the least suffering? And we just make the best decision that we can. But as ignorant, unenlightened beings, at some point we're going to make a mistake. We're not going to see all the implications of this decision we're making. So we make the decision and, oh no, it was the bad decision. It was the worst decision. If our motivation was compassion, if our motivation was to be selfless and try to avoid causing suffering, even if we make a mistake, we've done good. And then we can use that situation to learn more wisdom for the next time. Yes. Thank you.
I have a question about fake, F-A-I-T-H. Yeah, fake. So, from the last lecture from one of the monks back master, he say there's no faith because well, basically, what I'm trying to ask is if there's no faith, won't the Buddhist won't enlighten when he saw the guy with the guitar and with the string that it took? I think it's okay. I told you I'm not good at asking.
Keep talking about the before Buddha got the light, the one of the on the heaven, the guitar with the three strings, one and two, too tight, broke. The other one is too loose, that makes it sound. The one in the middle makes it sound. So that's why the Buddha followed that direction. He got the proof of the Sridharma, I mean, yeah. So the question is that the faith is that faith why Buddha saw that guy with that species?
I really wish I could speak Vietnamese because I know that these other monks, they have years and years more experience and education than me. And I would really love to learn from them, but unfortunately I don't, so I can't really say for sure what this other venerable who was speaking was talking about in terms of faith. If he said that there was no faith, I'm thinking my impression is that he was saying that there is no blind faith. Because it isn't through simply believing that we come to enlightenment. It's through studying and practicing the Dharma that we come to enlightenment. But faith does play a role because, for example, I cannot scientifically prove to you, there's no experiment with computers and machines and chemicals that we can do to prove that the Buddha is a Buddha, that enlightenment is possible. At some point, we just have to say, well, this makes sense based on what I've learned of the Buddha's teachings. This makes sense, so I'm gonna follow that.